You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So we talked about Kyle McCord's excellent day as the new signal caller for Syracuse football. And now it's time to get to the man of the hour, making his head coaching debut in college football in general, not just for Syracuse in general, Fran Brown, who in my opinion showed me a lot of good this afternoon. Of course, it's not perfect, and I wasn't necessarily expecting him to be perfect, but Fran Brown, with his clock management at the end of the first half, showed me a lot. Clock management is something that, let's be honest, so many coaches struggle with it. It doesn't seem like something that should be hard, but yet a lot of coaches struggle. One of the main ones that has struggled with clock management is actually Andy Reid, who might be the best coach in the NFL. But, he gets Patrick Mahomes, and all of a sudden, his issues of clock management kind of go away. We don't really remember the fact that Andy Reid used to really struggle with the clock. And he's one of the best coaches in the world. You can make an argument that he is the best coach in the NFL. He's better than any of the college football head coaches. And that's Andy Reid. He struggles with the clock. Fran Brown, at the end of the first half, showed excellent clock management skills. And let's get right to it, because it wasn't just the offense. It starts with the fact when Syracuse was on defense. The Orange had, first of all 3 timeouts at the end of the half, which is important. The fact that Syracuse didn't have to waste any timeouts for really any reason, right? Was there ever an instance during the game where the play clock is winding down, especially in that first half, where play clock's winding down and Syracuse all of a sudden has to use a timeout? I don't remember. I don't. So you have all 3 of your timeouts. And on defense, as Ohio is driving in the red zone, which obviously isn't good, we don't want Ohio driving in the red zone, Fran Brown did a nice job of using his timeouts to preserve the clock, which again, it sounds super easy, like any coach can do it, but yet we remember Dino Babers, the last head coach for Syracuse, who wasn't so great with the clock. And it ensures that Syracuse still has a chance to score at the end of the first half. They have about, after Ohio kicks a field goal to make it 10-9, Syracuse has about 40 seconds and 1 timeout to go down the field, which is plenty of time to get a field goal, especially in college football where the clock will stop after a first down. So the drive starts off with Kyle McCord finding Arondé Gadsden along the sideline for 18 yards. The perfect chunk play. Don't have to use a timeout. Didn't take off too much time off the clock. And it gets nearly 20 yards. Now, all of a sudden, you're in business. You only need about 30 yards to get into field goal range. Already off the bat, a good start to the drive. And then over the course, there were some plays and over the middle, along the sideline. But it ends up working out to where Syracuse has about 10 seconds and no timeouts at the Ohio 20-yard line. And the clock is stopped at this point. I think Fran Brown did a nice job at that point calling timeout to preserve 10 seconds. And there are 2 schools of thought. You can kick the field goal right there, which I would not have been opposed to doing. I would have said, okay, you don't want to risk it. That's fine. Kick the field goal, try to go up 13-9. I get that. Instead, Fran Brown takes a calculated risk. He gets a little aggressive, but it's not overwhelming. It's not to the point where I'm seriously questioning what he is doing. He's got 10 seconds. Syracuse is at the 20-yard line at the end of the first half. If you're going to run a play and you have no timeouts, you got to take a shot to the end zone. It's got to be a low-risk play to the end zone because you want to ensure that you're going to have a chance to get points. That is exactly what the Orange dial up. And also credit to Jeff Nixon, the offensive coordinator, for the play. And Kyle McCord finds Trebor Pena for a 20-yard touchdown along the left sideline. It was a perfect throw. And Syracuse goes up 17-9 at the end of the first half. Not only was that important, that was an important drive. But I honestly felt in that moment, even though Ohio cut it to a 1-point game in the second half, I really felt after that drive that Syracuse didn't have much of a chance of losing. I really did. After that one, I pretty much thought the game was over. And that was all because of Fran Brown's excellent time management skills and Kyle McCord's ability to command an offense with everyone having the situational awareness. It's about situational football, and I think Syracuse did a really good job at the end of the first half, knowing how much time was on the clock, knowing that they had one timeout, knowing exactly what to do, just where to throw the ball, Kyle. Take a low-risk shot to Trebor Pena. That's it. And if it's incomplete, it's incomplete. It's not going to be intercepted. You kick the field goal. So overall, A+ to Fran Brown in that regard with the clock management. We'll see if he can continue that going forward, but positive sign in that regard. Now, let's go over a little bit of the negative because we're not going to be all positive Polly on here. And let's talk about the penalties. And Syracuse committed 6 penalties in this game for 47 yards, which isn't awful. It's not awful. But at the same time, you are going against inferior competition. You do want to limit your mistakes as much as possible because, well, when you're playing a team like Georgia Tech in week 2, they are going to be much tougher. You're probably going to commit more mistakes, which means more penalties. So 6 penalties for 47 yards, though, isn't too bad. However, it was some of the types of penalties that were committed for Syracuse. We talk about detail, right? DART for Fran Brown. The D stands for detail. Well, running into the kicker in the second quarter, that's not good. That's not good enough, right? There was a running into the kicker on a 3-and-out in the second quarter. And, well, Ohio gets the ball back. Now, fortunately, Ohio again goes 3-and-out, but you don't want to run into the kicker. However, I will give the proverbial pass because the replay, which was really fast, I couldn't exactly tell. It looked as though it might have been Ohio's lineman or whoever that ran into the kicker or ran into the punter. But still, leave no doubt, right? Let's not touch the punter when he is punting the ball, please. All right? So you never want to commit a running into the punter. That's a bad penalty. Then at the end of the first half on Anthony Tyus's 44-yard run. Now, Anthony Tyus is basically Ohio's version of Jim Brown. He had a 44-yard run at the end of the first half. Now, it's bad enough that Syracuse missed a couple of tackles. Deuce Chestnut had a missed tackle on that run. Marcellus Barnes had a missed tackle on that run. But it then is compounded by the fact that Justin Barron commits a 15-yard late hit out of bounds. That's a penalty that can't happen. Obviously, it's on the player first and foremost, right? Justin Barron cannot be committing 15-yard out-of-bound penalties. However, it also comes back to coaching and ensuring that your players are going to limit that mistake as much as possible. And I really feel like I'm nitpicking. I really feel like I am because aside from that, I thought that Fran Brown did a really, really nice job in this game. He wasn't perfect. Some of the penalties I didn't love, but it was the clock management at the end of the first half, which had me really, really impressed.